wasn't difficult to find them. They were coming like an endless procession of sleepwalkers. As if instinctively, they moved on. They carried on their heads their last worldly possessions. Some faces reflected the horror enacted before their eyes only a few days ago. On other faces prevailed a layer of stunned indifference. As if after such a seemingly endless journey, it didn't really matter whether they were dead or alive. Their unspeakable suffering made us wonder, for what crimes must they go through this terrifying ordeal? They didn't know. Neither did we. But we all wanted to know how long must the world allow Yahya and his accomplices to go on committing genocidal crimes against such innocent people. Clearly, they have been walking for days, without food, without sleep. The fatigue was killing, but they had to move on. They had to find safety before rest. And rest did come at long last. Some found it under a tree, some in disused warehouses. There are many refugee camps in India, but there could never be enough when the refugees arrive in hundreds and thousands by the hour. Naturally, new arrivals could not be accommodated in them. In the nearby refugee camp, we came across an old woman wading through the slush. She was looking for shelter before the rains came down again. But every inch was already occupied. She was finding it hard to believe that after 90 long years, she would be without a roof over her head with monsoon approaching. An unknown fear gripped her. Was she going to die after all, after surviving the fatigue of the long, long journey from her home village? In another camp, we found a girl a little over 16. Her father was a shopkeeper in Khulna. The army entered their home during curfew hours. They looted all the cash and gold ornaments. Then she was flung onto the floor, and 6 of the army brutes raped her by turn, right in front of her family. Before they left, they lined up her parents, 2 brothers and uncle. A 100-mile eyes took place in Bangladesh. Binod Behari is a witness to one. The sadistic killers arrived in his Faridpur village and without warning massacred 253 men, women and children. There are many witnesses to similar massacres that took place in Dhaka on and after March 25. At Jinjira, on the other side of the river Buriganga, the army killed more than 6,000 people in one afternoon. Yet this unbelievable tragedy is taking place at a time when we had almost convinced ourselves of the greatness of modern civilization. Man has set his foot on the moon, and we were all ready to believe that human civilization was on the threshold of a new era where man's exploitation by man could be found only in history books. We were rudely roused from our dreams by the sadistic fascists from West Pakistan. Unbelievable though it may seem, it all happened under the very nose of the self-appointed defenders of human rights. Monsoon was back and it began to rain incessantly. But compared to Pakistani brutality, weather's fury meant little to the refugees. They kept moving on and on. The endless human stream roused so many questions in my mind. What really was their fault? How deep was their participation in politics to deserve such terrible victimization? Did any nation or race ever had to pay such a price for exercising their right to vote for someone they liked? As we watched the refugees, suddenly we noticed a curious movement. We moved nearer and she turned out to be an old woman aged anything between 80 and 100. she could see very little, but she had acquired a sense of direction and distance with the use of her bamboo stick. She appeared to understand my questions, but would only reply, "All gone, nothing left." It was amazing that with so little power in her eyes, she dared to take on the hazardous journey. Crawling like that, she had covered nearly 100 miles. Will she survive the fatigue? I asked myself. What really have these Pakistani marauders done to make such an old woman want to flee?